Click posts one confident selfie and waits for the internet to applaud. Instead, a comment diagnoses him with narcissism in 6 dramatic seconds. Another comment diagnoses the lamp, the mirror, and a suspiciously confident sandwich. Apparently, the internet has opened a clinic, and everyone forgot the license. The word narcissist now means selfish, vain, controlling, annoying, or recently divorced from me. But a disliked behavior is not the same thing as a personality structure. Narcissism can describe ordinary traits, harmful patterns, or a specific clinical disorder. Mixing those meanings creates confident accusations and very little actual understanding. So liking praise does not automatically make you a narcissist. Neither does taking selfies, enjoying success, setting boundaries, or being terrible at apologies once. The useful question is not whether someone triggered a 5-item internet checklist. It is whether a rigid pattern repeatedly distorts self-worth, relationships, and responsibility. Psychologists usually treat narcissistic traits as dimensions, not an on-off switch. Most people sometimes want admiration, feel special, or protect their pride. Those tendencies become more concerning when they are intense, inflexible, and costly. Picture a volume knob, not a secret villain button behind the forehead. Modern research also complicates the stereotype of one permanently swaggering show-off. Narcissism can appear in grandiose or vulnerable forms, and some people show elements of both kinds of self-state. Self-importance and entitlement form a proposed shared core, although models differ. Expression can vary with temperament, threat, and context. Grandiose narcissism is the version that arrives wearing its own imaginary spotlight. It can involve boldness, dominance, attention-seeking, fantasies of exceptional success, and visible confidence. At first, that energy may look charming, decisive, entertaining, or unusually ambitious. The trouble grows when admiration matters more than reciprocity and entitlement outruns reality. Vulnerable narcissism often looks less like a peacock and more like exposed wiring. It can involve shame, hypersensitivity, withdrawal, resentment, and intense concern about evaluation. Someone may privately imagine being exceptional while publicly avoiding situations that could prove otherwise. That is not a separate internet species called the covert narcissist. Grandiose and vulnerable patterns are research dimensions, not 2 costume boxes for diagnosing strangers. People can show different mixtures, and clinical theories still disagree about important details. A confident presentation can hide fragility, but hidden fragility cannot be assumed from confidence. Good psychology describes evidence before it writes the secret backstory. Narcissism is also not simply high self-esteem wearing sunglasses. Self-esteem is a general sense of worth. While narcissistic self-importance emphasizes status, superiority, entitlement, or special recognition, those motives can coexist with high, low, stable, or fragile self-esteem, depending on the narcissistic features involved. Equality may feel threatening when status or entitlement is central, but that response is not universal. Researchers sometimes separate admiration from rivalry within grandiose narcissism. Admiration pursues status through charm, uniqueness, confidence, and impressive performance. Rivalry protects status by devaluing competitors, fighting criticism, and asserting superiority. The same spotlight can invite an audience or become a weapon against the audience. This helps explain why first impressions and later group interactions can tell different stories. Confidence and expressive energy may create early social appeal. In one 3-week group study, rivalry predicted increasingly arrogant, aggressive behavior and declining popularity. That is an average pattern, not a forecast for every relationship. What about social media? The enormous mirror in everyone's pocket. Meta-analyses find a small positive association between grandiose narcissism and social networking behavior. One large review estimated an overall correlation around 0.17. That is a population-level association, not a selfie-based diagnostic scanner. Millions of non-narcissistic people post photos, track likes, and enjoy attention. Platforms also reward self-promotion whether personality caused it or not. Culture, platform design, age, and the behavior being measured can change the association. Your profile grid is not a psychological blood test. Another popular myth says narcissistic people possess absolutely zero empathy. Research describes something more complicated than an empty empathy tank. Understanding another person's perspective and emotionally responding to it are related but different processes. Capacity, attention, motivation, threat, and emotion regulation can all affect what appears. In one experiment, perspective-taking instructions increased self-reported empathy and physiological responding among participants higher in maladaptive narcissism. That does not mean empathy problems are imaginary or easily solved. It shows that empathic responding was modifiable in that laboratory context. It does not establish lasting change or explain every person's empathy difficulties. Criticism can threaten self-image for some people high in narcissistic traits. Responses may include counterattack, blame, belittling, or demands for reassurance. Others may withdraw, brood, or avoid situations where failure feels possible. These reactions can regulate threatened self-esteem, but the same behaviors can have other causes. Now we can separate traits from narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. Clinical descriptions emphasize persistent grandiosity and need for admiration. Entitlement and low empathy are among the possible features, but neither is required by itself. Under the DSM-5-TR categorical model, diagnosis needs at least 5 of 9 criteria in a pervasive pattern across contexts, plus clinically significant distress or impairment. A clinician considers duration, context, culture, development, and competing explanations. Trauma responses, mood episodes, substance effects, other personality patterns, and ordinary conflict can produce some of the same outward behaviors. An online observer rarely has the history or assessment needed to sort that out. Certainty about an absent stranger is usually the least clinical part of the discussion. NPD is not a synonym for abuse, and abuse does not require NPD. People with many different personalities can manipulate, intimidate, exploit, or harm others. You can name the behavior, protect yourself, and seek help without solving the person's diagnosis. Boundaries work on actions, not on winning a courtroom drama inside your head. Where does narcissism come from? There is no single origin story. Temperament, learning, relationships, culture, adversity, and development may all contribute. One longitudinal childhood study linked parental overvaluation with later narcissistic traits. Parental warmth, by contrast, was linked with self-esteem rather than narcissism. That finding does not prove one parenting mistake manufactures a personality disorder. It studied developing traits, not a simple recipe for adult NPD. Genes, environments, and children influence one another across years. The honest causal diagram has many arrows and several question marks. Personality is persistent, but persistent does not mean frozen forever. A 2024 meta-analysis found narcissism generally decreased from childhood through older adulthood on average. People still differed in their individual paths, and most samples were Western. Age may turn the volume down, but it does not press the same button for everyone. People with pathological narcissism can seek treatment and can change. Psychotherapy focuses on self-esteem regulation, relationships, emotional awareness, and more realistic self-understanding. The research base is smaller than anyone should pretend, and treatment dropout can be high. Difficulty is not the same thing as impossibility. If another person's pattern is hurting you, start with observable behavior. Notice repeated blame, coercion, humiliation, broken agreements, or punishment for reasonable boundaries. Document what matters. Protect access to your time and safety, and seek trustworthy support. You do not need a diagnostic label before taking harm seriously. If you recognize traits in yourself, replace shame with specific accountability. Can you tolerate being ordinary, hear criticism, repair harm, and celebrate someone else's spotlight? Traits are not destiny, and honest reflection is more useful than a dramatic self-diagnosis. A qualified professional can help when patterns repeatedly damage life or cause distress. So, narcissism is neither a monster detector nor a synonym for confidence. It is a complex family of traits that can become rigid, defensive, and relationally costly. NPD is a clinical diagnosis, while bad behavior remains bad without one. Precision protects both people experiencing harm and people living with a stigmatized disorder. Click deletes the internet clinic and returns to his perfectly reasonable selfie. The lamp refuses assessment, the mirror requests a second opinion, and the sandwich remains grandiose. Click likes his own post, pauses, and also likes somebody else's. The spotlight is much healthier when it has room to move.